Oh, what a corker that shot was.
It's baseball.
It's four, that's all that matters.
Hello, welcome to the sixth and final episode of The Greatest Ashes 2005. This episode is called Ecstasy, about the Oval Test of September 2005. I'm Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
And you can watch this, of course, on video as well. If you Google the Analyst podcast YouTube channel, you can enjoy those great moments from the Oval of England lifting the urn, etc. We'll come to that in due course. Just to give you a sense, actually, of how the nation was engaged and captivated by this series, even the commentators had become famous. So there were two articles in the papers, The Real Dream Team in The Independent.
You didn't get into that, though, yours, did you, The Real Dream Team?
And The Big Hitters behind the mic in the Times. And they were both evaluating the commentary teams. There were some quite funny caricatures in the Independent coverage. And so Mark Nicholas, Mike Atherton, Jeff Boycott seemed to be top three in the dream team. Richie Benaud as captain, of course. And then Tony, Greg, Michael Slater and me somehow get into it. Although there's a wry comment here from Giles Smith, who wrote this article, saying, Hughes bears the drawn look of someone who has been cooped up indoors, staring at a screen when he should have been outside taking advantage of the weather. Because I'd been in a truck for so long. Another measure of how well known even the commentary team had become was I was getting recognised even on the tube, and people saying, "Oh yeah, hi Simon, I love your work, love the Analyst and all that." And it got to my head a bit because I was in the Virgin Megastore buying some CDs one day, and this girl, really attractive girl, came up to me. I thought, "Oh, maybe I've been recognised by her." And she came up to me and she said, "Hi," she said, "what sort of music do you like?" And so I thought, well, I better sound impressive. So I said, oh, Moby, Franz Ferdinand, the Scissor Sisters, trying to sound cool. I said, why? She said, it's my dad's birthday. I want to know what kind of music he likes, which is a little bit deflating, but probably put me in my place. But, you know, it was amazing. Everybody was fascinated. In fact, the big story of the moment wasn't were England going to win the Ashes or not. It was, would Simon Jones recover from his ankle injury in time to take his place in the team, which was important for two reasons. One, obviously his bowling was incisive, but secondly, it would have been the first time, I think, ever that England have fielded the same 11 players in all 5 Ashes Test matches.
Yeah, and it also, on the other thing, he'd been so good for England in the series. I mean, he was one of their standout performers, wasn't he? He'd nearly helped them win at Old Trafford. He'd helped them win the match at Trent Bridge with his 5 wickets in the first innings, to 6 at Old Trafford. He was magnificent in the series, great pace, reverse swing. So to not have him at the Oval was a huge loss potentially for England. So who was going to replace him? That was the question.
Well, it was not without serious effort that he tried to make it into the team, even spending time in an oxygen chamber.
They've got a hyperbaric chamber there. So I had 6 days in there. I think it was 2-3 hour sessions for 6 days, just with the gas mask on. It was a horrible feeling, Hughesy, because I was in there with cancer patients. One guy had gangrene in and he could have lost his foot. And I was in there with them, and it wasn't because of what was wrong with them. I felt like an imposter. I'm like, these people are trying to save their lives or save his foot, and I'm just here to play sport. I felt as if I was taking the place of someone that deserved to be in there.
What was the result? I mean, did it help at all?
Not really, no. So we went out onto the practice pitches, and I did a couple of lengths running, and it just wasn't working. I said, look, there's no way I can go into that game and let the lads down again. We're just going to have to call it a day, unfortunately. So,
well, that must have been devastating for you.
Oh yeah, it was horrific because, and I think that would have been the first time that England had never changed the team in a series against Australia ever.
So who were England going to pick to replace him? A real dilemma for Michael Vaughan.
Well, that week leading into the Oval was hard because everywhere we went we had cameras. I'd never experienced anything like that, and Simon was injured, so we had to make a decision. For the first time in the series, me and Duncan had to sit and go, right, which way do we go here? Do we pack the batting and go with Collingwood, or do we replace Simon with Jimmy Anderson? And we looked at the forecast. We knew that bad light would play some part throughout the game. So we decided to go for the first time with a bit of negativity. We thought, oh, we'll kind of get men behind the ball and we'll pack the batting. And I was petrified of it. Honestly, I was so scared of doing that because I didn't want to suddenly get to the last hurdle and almost look like we were being negative, and then it fails.
It's amazing, actually, to think back, isn't it? England did not select Jimmy Anderson, who was going to go on to be their most successful ever bowler for that Test match. But he was right at the start of his career. He was a young lad in his early 20s. It was a huge occasion. They went for Paul Collingwood, who definitely wasn't a like for like, not at all. I mean, you're talking about a batter who bowled a bit and could field. I mean, it was so far away from Simon Jones as to be almost unimaginable. Really, but that's who they went for.
Yeah, and I think they were partly influenced by the weather forecast, which was a little bit indifferent for September in South London. And so they thought they might lose a bit of time to the weather. So if they could bolster their batting, and the bowlers would have to just bowl a few more overs. In fact, Freddie was happy. Freddie Flintoff was happy to do that.
Felt fine, I think. We knew we had a massive job in hand. We had 5 more days of Ashes cricket, and on the past 4 Test matches, anything could have happened. You don't know what to expect. But it was almost the public and the press, and we'd won the Ashes, but we hadn't. It was 2-1 up. If they win the Test match, I'd take them back with them. And a draw at that stage was just use and ornament to us. We wanted to win them. And we turned up, and I think the good thing was we prepared in the same way we had done for the previous 3. Everything we did was measured, it was calm, and it was a side which were ready to play a game of cricket.
One little distraction from the build-up, actually, was Kevin Pietersen came down to my club, Ealing, to do a little sort of Red Bull promotion and a little bit of coaching. And I set him a challenge at the end. I said, right, I'm going to bowl to you and you've got to hit 20 off my over with a full field.
It needed to be a bigger challenge than that, surely.
It should have been 40, shouldn't it? But because it had been 10 years or so since I'd retired. But actually, I surprised myself. I managed to only concede 12, I think, off the over. 1-6 bounced off a wall, but I managed to get a couple of Yorkers in the block hole. And in the end, I managed to win the game for my fictitious team, and Kevin failed. But what he did say, what he promised at the end of that event was, I'm going to take Shane Warne on. And he was as good as his word, wasn't he?
He was. You could have put him out of the Test match. You bowled him a bank.
I was only bowling 50-mile-an-hour Yorkers. It wouldn't have been too taxing.
Yes, but I'm not talking about the pace of bowling. I'm talking about straining his back as he tried to hit you out of the club.
Yeah, true. Short boundaries. And maybe it just got him going because, we'll see later the dramatic innings he played. I think it warmed him up nicely.
Yeah. What about England's pre-match preparations? How did they feel going into the game? Look, this was the biggest match for English cricket since, it's hard to calculate, actually. Probably since...
it was the biggest sporting moment in England since the 1966 Football World Cup final. I mean, that's how big it was portrayed in the press. And so it was important for the players that they managed to retain a composure and, took the emotion away. Freddie Flintoff in particular was pretty good at that. So, of course, the series had ebbed and flowed amazingly. And this is how I, sitting in the Analyst truck, summed up the state of play at the start of the final test. If you think this game and this series has been on a knife edge, just remember back a couple of tests to a couple of incidents. It's been a tale of full tosses. Just look at this. This is back to Edgbaston, 4-1 for Australia. Palmerston's bowling to Brett Lee. This is how much the series has been on a knife edge. 4-1, and he gets a full toss and he smashes it, but straight to the man, deep point for 1. And the men change places, and England win that game. Now here we are at Trent Bridge, 8-1 for England. The full toss, if he hadn't hit that for 4, Matthew Hoggard, England might not have won that game. So the Ashes would now have been Australia's if those full tosses hadn't gone to the boundary and for 1 at Edgbaston. Now here we are at Old Trafford, the last over, 1 wicket to win, and if Matthew Hoggard had just held on to the ball here, instead of throwing it back to the bowler, if he'd held on to the ball there and run McGrath out, England would have won that game and they would have had the Ashes. So, now to this match. McGrath is back, he's fit, but how fit? and he won't certainly have bowled all that much for the last month. He won't get the same amount of movement when he bowls as he did at Lord's, that jagging back down the slope. Maybe Shane Warne will come into the picture, but at last for England the great thing is he hasn't got to bowl last, and he won't get the amount of turn and extravagant movement that he got there at Edgbaston to bowl out Andrew Strauss. It's the fearsome foursome for England that really hold the power. Simon Jones, though, is out of this game, and so it means Steve Harmison has to stand up for himself. Unfortunately, England have the beaming man mountain, Andrew Flintoff, worth 2. So now it's down to the captains. Ricky Ponting has to rally his ageing troops one more time, but this man won't cease from the mental fight, and he's got the nation behind him.
It's important to remember, and you've alluded to it already, is that this game started in September. We weren't really used to September cricket then, were we? Now we're very used to it, and test matches starting in September. Back then we weren't really. It didn't happen that often. And we're saying, well, the last Ashes test is going to start on the 8th of September. There are going to be weather problems, both before the start of play, damp mornings potentially, and also shorter days as well. So bad light is going to
there's no
come into
floodlights,
it,
for instance, to be used later in the day. Yeah,
so no floodlights back then. And so that was a bit of a damp squib, actually, because there was a feeling that the fact that England were 2-1 up, that gave them the advantage, because I think a lot of people felt it could be a shortened game. And as it turned out, that was a bit of a factor in the match. But so England won the toss again, they batted again, and for the most part, they made the most of it. They probably could have scored a few more. They made 373 in their innings, and Andrew Strauss made another 100.
Yeah, I think to the build-up to the Test match, I think we were feeling like this is going to be one of the most special weeks of our lives. And as you say, that there was so much interest, it captured the imagination of the whole country, and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow was there. It was just tantalisingly out of reach. We just had to go and find a way of drawing this Test match. And of course, you're looking at the weather forecast and how much, potentially, are we going to get any rain? Are we going to lose some play over the course of the 5 days? None of us were sleeping particularly well. There was that sort of extraordinary enveloping pressure. But at the same time, when you're in that pressure situation, you just can't wait to get out there and actually do it. It's the build-up's the hard thing. And so, we won a crucially important toss, I think. And that innings that I played, it was definitely one of probably the innings that I was most proud of in my career.
Lovely drive from Strauss. Runs here for Trescothick, and again it will run away across that very fast square bit. And the 50 up now. Good opening partnership between Strauss and Trescothick, with the seamers really struggling, and it seemed to be too much in the pitch for them. It's almost you feel as though the whole of the Australian team, the other 10 players, are looking to Warne for some magic here. Runs, more runs, and another boundary. It's Trescothick's 8-4, and we've only had an hour's play.
Oh, that's brilliant. Fantastic catch. That is so difficult to do. Magnificent cricket this from the Australians, and as so often led by Warne.
That's a big wicket too. Trescothick for 43. It's 82 for 1.
Runs for Strauss again, backward a point. He's so quick to latch on to anything fractionally wide, and it brings up England's 100.
Vaughan is going to be cranky about that. Just bounced a fraction more on him. Straightforward catch, which finished up with the fielder on the ground, but 2 down.
Vaughan gone for 11, 102 for 2.
Ooh, that is close. LBW 3 from Vaughan. That's really well bowled. Bill hadn't got to the point of realising that Vaughan's not turning the ball much, but that was a quicker delivery.
The ball just drifted slightly, and Bell had his pad on the line of the ball and not the bat, and it would have gone on to hit leg stump. Oh, brilliant bowling from the leg spinner, who now has 3 for 27.
Bowled him! There it is, the battle's over! And Shane Warne gets his 4th. What a delivery! Oh, beautiful ball. Scrape between bat and par, but it was a terrific delivery. It spun. That's big, big, big for Australia. 131 for 4.
It's nicely played by Strauss.
Oh, great shot.
Tony's right, it was effortless, wasn't it? That's what I like to see him play. Just a nice firm punch and the ball rockets away.
That's a good shot, well played. Straight into the gap at backward square leg. It takes him to 97. Oh, he's hit that one. It's going a long way down in the ground. Is it over the top? Well, the crowd is signalling 6. I'm not too sure. One way or the other, it's Freddie Flintoff's half century. Oh, good shot. That's his 100. This has been a superb knock. That's Mrs. Strauss there, and boy, she's delighted.
I think that was the most pressure I ever batted in, and we were losing wickets at the other end. So to go on and get 100 that day and play very fluently was an extraordinarily satisfying performance for me, and definitely one that I was very proud of.
So we're into the second day, Australia replying to England's 377 all out. A reasonable score, but not a really punishing score. I think the feeling was they didn't quite make the most of it in that first innings, but they're very much in the game because they had those runs on the board. Australia then replied with their first century opening partnership of the series.
Magnificent stroke from Matthew Hayden. Short, outside of stump 50 on the board now. 18 overs gone. He hasn't got that properly. Otherwise, it would have gone for 9.
I think there's a bit of a message in it though, Richie. It's not often that the second ball bowled to you by a spinner, an opening batsman charges down the wicket.
They were 112 for no wicket at the close of the second day, but they had gone off a bad light, which seems a strange thing to do when you're trying to win a test match, to win the series, basically, to level the series and therefore to retain the Ashes. What was that all about?
Well, I think it was partly the impressive speed of England's bowlers, especially Flintoff, and the dim light and the fact that the oval seeing isn't great, or it used not to be. They don't have the benefit of floodlights, or they didn't then. So it was a combination of those, and also Australia's respect now for England's bowlers, especially Flintoff, which was a total, turnabout from how they used to feel, where they felt they could win in any conditions. Suddenly they thought, well, we need the best conditions. And I suppose it was an admission of weakness, in a way, an admission of slight trepidation, which really they'd never revealed. Certainly Hayden and Langer had never revealed before.
Well, this is how Michael Vaughan saw it.
The umpires would offer them the light and they'd go off. When they were, Hayden and Langer put on a big first wicket partnership, and they kept on. I couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, get off. This is great. then I think on the last day, all the crowd put the sunglasses on and, took a bit of the mickey out of the Aussie team. But it was a nerve-wracking week. As much as I can say, oh, yeah, we were really calm and we knew we were going to get it done and we were going to get over the line, no, we were nervous.
So off for bad light on the second day. The third day, Australia hoping for better conditions. That's one of the reasons why they went off on the second day, hoping for better conditions. Third day, weather not particularly good, and we had about just over 50 overs in the day's play. Australia manoeuvring themselves into a reasonable position. They were 277 for 2, so making progress, but still close on 100 runs behind with 2 days left of the match. Langer and Hayden, though, both joined in. They both made hundreds. Australia were clinging on at that point. It needed something dramatic on the final 2 days for them to win the match, to force a result in their favour.
I think they paid for their caution, really, because there was a lot of time lost on that Saturday. And if they'd been a bit more forthright on the second day and stayed on, they might have been able to get a bit closer to England and put them under more pressure. But as it was, they were still a long way behind going into the fourth day.
Yeah, it was hard to see how they could win on the fourth morning when they came out on the fourth morning. But you could. But this was Australia. You knew what they were capable of. You knew that they had a bowling attack that could suddenly engender a collapse. And England, of course, the draw was fine for them. So what do? Do you go for the win? Do you play for the draw? How do you play it? Well, Australia only had one option, which was to go for the victory, and they weren't in a very obviously promising position. But of course, they still had 8 wickets in hand, and they were 100 runs behind. So if they really could press on the fourth day, there was an opportunity for them to put England under pressure with the ball on the fifth day. As it happened, Freddie Flintoff bowled another magnificent spell. He had such a brilliant series, runs and wickets. It's just his overall influence on the team, got the crowd going as well. 5 for 78 from 34 overs.
And it was unstinting, that spell. In fact, he promised his captain Vaughan at the start, he said, I'm going to bowl until they're all out. I'm just going to keep going. And he did. He was as good as his word, which Justin Langer in particular was hugely impressed by, not least because Freddie off the field was this big kind of jolly sort of chap. And suddenly on it, he was this, giant oppressor. And, the contrast between the two, it was sort of Andrew off the field and Freddie on it. And Langer was really struck by that contrast.
We'd come off the night before because of bad light. And it was literally so dark. And we come off for light. And the next morning we rock up. And there's Freddie, you walk through the dining area at the Oval there. We walk through and there's Freddie. He's sitting in a pair of boxer shorts, a singlet on with all his tats. He's got a pint of Coke and a Red Bull sitting next to him. And we're walking through like, this is the Ashes, and we're all up and we're all serious listening to it. All right, lads, good to see you boys. And he's sort of joking and laughing, drinking his Coke and how you going? Love having a party with them. How you going, boys? And we're all going, oh, fucking no worries. Yeah, okay. And then he came out that next morning and bowled us out. He got 5 for 78 and no time. He got us by, and he took the game back. And then till Pietersen, that innings of Pietersen, right, which was an amazing innings. But it was Freddie. Freddie was the one who kept changing it all the time.
Now it's going to be Andrew Flintoff. Mud and all. Where he's been sliding around across the outfield. Good catch. And very well bowled by Flintoff. He got the ball to bounce. And it was just enough for Strauss to be able to dive forward and claim the catch.
I think Ricky Ponting was just a little surprised that it got quite up as much as it did. And it just carried. Very good catch diving forward. Out. Well, he caused him problems last night with the pace and bounce. He's done it again straight away with an old ball, I might say. He's got it to bounce and created a sort of ugly sort of shot from Damian Martin.
Within 15 minutes, the old ball had been replaced with the new one. Following that, the light was offered by the umpires, which the Australians this time refused.
There's some lights up there.
go with you.
Must be LBW, surely. Yep, it's a slow death from Rudy Kitson, but it is a death. Flintoff has done it for England, but Matthew Hayden will leave the field with his head held high because he's played a terrific hand.
Yes, he's fought back well. There's no doubt about that. The replay here will be interesting. Did it nip back a little bit to straighten its line? Yes, I think so. I think that's fair enough.
That's also close. That is also out. This is a huge performance from Andrew Flintoff. It's exactly what everybody's come here for.
And the ball started to seam around a little bit. Hayden got one that nipped back, and that one seemed to me just to pitch in the red there and just hold the line. It certainly did. It was plumb LBW, beautiful bowling. That one hitting leg stump, the other one hit middle and leg. So when a ball deviates like that off the pitch, it's difficult to play. Well bowled.
Riveting field set for Gilchrist straight away. Oh, and what a delivery first up from Matthew Hoggard. Hoggard wanting Gilchrist to think that he'd bowl him the in-swinger with the way the field's set, and what does he do? Zips one across him.
Yep.
And that's a hell of a stroke. He's given that a little jab off a good length. Wow. What a stroke that is. Yep, we got a game.
This will be the first delivery that Gilchrist has faced from Flintoff, and this has been a great contest right through the series, and you'd have to say that Flintoff's winning the battle. Whoa. First ball, and there's a play and a miss.
Giving him LBW. Hoggard with the swinger.
Hawkeye suggesting yes, it's going to hit leg stump, and up until this point Hoggard, I've felt, has been fairly unlucky. He's bowled well this morning, and here is his first reward. It's the huge wicket of Adam Gilchrist.
Oh, that's out. That's out, yes. Beautiful bowling. Keep it up there. Swing it a little bit, and if he misses, it's going to hit. Oh, they're happy in the aisles.
Oh, that's missing leg, missing off, and knocking middle out, halfway up.
Oh, it's gone up in the air. This will be out caught. It will be out caught. Shane Warne is out. Flintoff has struck again. Another short ball. Shane Warne loves to play that hook shot, but it was onto him just a little quicker than he expected. More celebrations.
Just out and out aggression from England with a crowd on the feet, electric support. Fifth wicket coming up for Flintoff. What a performance, bold and change, and he's bowled fast and nasty. Oh, Michael, don't drop it. 363 for 8.
Oh, look at the applause. He's bowled all day today unchanged, and he's got 5 under his belt. He's no doubt the man of the moment.
And this was Flintoff on that amazing spell on the Sunday morning.
Yeah, I slipped a few Red Bulls in, I must admit, during the spell, but no, as I say, it's the last test, and everything was hinging on probably on that Australian first innings. We knew that if they got away from us, it was going to be difficult to get the draw and almost like win out the equation. So Vaughan asked me to bowl, and we'd spoke before the test about playing one bowler shy and playing collie. And I said we'd have to get on with it, we'd have to bowl our overs, and I'm fully aware of that. But I found it a great rhythm. And sometimes you don't seem to get tired. You seem to be bowling with good pace with minimum effort, and that's how it felt for me, to be honest. I just wanted to carry on bowling and bowling and bowling, and try and whittle a few more out.
That spell from Freddie Flintoff meant Australia were all out for 367. Now we're well into the fourth day now. So England had a lead of 6 runs. So it was basically a one innings match with just over a day to go. England came out to bat on that fourth evening, and at close of play on the fourth evening, with 1 day left in the series, they were 34 for 1. So basically they were 40 for 1 with 1 day left. And this series still had plenty of drama to give us. We'll find out what happened after the break.
So this is from my diary. Monday, the 12th of September 2005, the most significant day in English sport for 39 years. Can England, 34 for 1 overnight, at last deliver? Will Benno pronounce on their finest hour and say an emotional goodbye? Or will he do a John Arlott and finish with, and now in the commentary box, Tony Greig and Michael Atherton? Will Atherton remember to offer the mic to the winning captain at the presentation ceremony? Which captain will hold aloft the Ashes? At 8:30 a.m, the answer to the last question was neither, since the only Ashes urn in the vicinity was the one I had bought at the outset to display in my truck. ECB representatives would later approach me asking to borrow it. So they had actually forgotten to bring a replica urn for the last day of the game to present to the winning captain. I had one like this mounted in my truck in camera, and I had to give it up to them so they could present it to whoever wanted to hold the Ashes up at the end of play.
Before we get to that, we need to find out which captain is going to hold the Ashes urn up after that final day. So what did you think going into the final day? 40 for 1 England. Did you think, yeah, they've got a pretty good chance? Or did you think, hold on, we know what Australia are capable of here?
I thought England would do it, actually. And I've been convinced all along that their fearless, almost innovative approach had really paid dividends, and that Australia were a bit of a shadow of their former selves. Obviously, you had to respect their bowling attack, but it had been sort of withered down over time and eroded. And now their bowling attack was Brett Lee and Sean Tate and Glenn McGrath, who wasn't quite at his best anymore, and obviously the incomparable Shane Warne. So they still had a good attack, but the pitch was decent, and you felt the way England had been playing, they would have enough in the tank to just get there.
Weather was good. No weather problems for the final day of this test match. Well, not until right at the end of the day's play, when the light inevitably closed in, because we're right in the middle of September and there were no floodlights. But again, Australia, they would not go quietly. They chipped away and they chipped away. They took wickets during that morning session, and England were under pressure because they knew that whatever they achieved, if it was a relatively small score, I say whatever, and if England made 400, they wouldn't have been able to chase that. But if it was 180, 220, 240, this Australian side, they would go after it, and they had a decent chance of taking it down as well, as long as they had enough overs and the light was good enough for them.
And of course, McGrath had a final say because he got 2 wickets in 2 balls.
Magnificent catch. That's a beautiful delivery. 2 slips in position. In the air, got him! Warren's got him! That's a catch! That's 2 in a row! The Aussies are back in business. Well, have a look at him. This is unbelievable.
He was on a hat-trick when Kevin Pietersen came into bat.
Here we go. Oh! Has he got him? A big appeal, not out. Not out. Hit him on the arm. They're all in the air. The Aussies reckon they had him. Pietersen stood his ground.
We should, thank the Lord Billy Bowden gave it not out. And actually, it was a brilliant decision because, in fact, it just glanced Pietersen's shoulder, his right shoulder, as the ball fizzed through and missed his gloves. And we even looked at that back in replays in the truck, and he was right. Bowden got it right. If he'd given it out, there was no recourse, there was no DRS. So Pietersen would have been out first ball. But he was saved by the eagle-eyedness of the umpire. And actually also, Shane Warne then dropped Pietersen at slip as well, bizarrely.
Is that the moment or what?
most extraordinary.
It's almost half volley, look. And it just goes, it doesn't go that quick. He's got good hands as Shane Warne. That's a big miss for them. Huge miss.
McGrath, who still had something to offer, sums up that little spell of play.
The hat-trick ball to KP, I thought I'd give him a bouncer. And I remember I just didn't come out very well. At the last minute, I jumped in too far and came across myself, and it didn't come out anywhere near as well as I'd like. And he still, it went close to the glove, hit his shoulder, and then Ricky Ponting caught it. We thought, big appeal, but not out.
Good decision by Billy Bowden, actually, I remember.
Probably what it was. It was just one of those things. And then Brett Lee bowled to Kevin Pietersen, who edged one straight to Warney at first slip. And Shano he'd catch that one 99 times out of 100, but this time just went straight in and knocked it over the top. And I reckon if we got that wicket, there would have been a good chance we would have gone on and really maybe even won that test match. But history shows KP went on, got a big 100, his first test 100, guaranteed that England wouldn't lose the match.
Despite that reprieve for Kevin Pietersen, England were toiling. At lunch, they were 127 for 5. Flintoff was out just before the break on 126. So at lunch, they were 133 runs ahead with 5 wickets in hand. And, the game was in the balance then, wasn't it? I mean, that was really such a tight situation for them. And it felt as though this Australian side, were capable of taking out the lower order. They got a wicket or two quickly after lunch. They'd be chasing 150, 180 to win the game. So what did Michael Vaughan say to his players at lunch? Well, this is what he said to Kevin Pietersen.
Phil Neal, the manager, he came and said, KP needs to have a chat with us. I said, let me finish my chicken. I said, we're fine, don't worry, tell him to chill. And I remember walking into the dressing room, Kev was sat there with his pads on, and he was in a bit of a daze. Not too much of a daze, and he said, Skip, how do I play? Because he'd just been peppered. Brett Lee had bowled the speed of light. He'd had one just go past his throat. I think he'd glove one to Warney, had dropped it at first slip. One or two had gone over the slips off the bat handle. He said, how do I play? I said, Kev, attack. You've got to attack. I said, go out there and take them on. Simple as that. I said, an hour of you, I reckon we've got this.
And Pietersen was transformed afterwards. Remember, before lunch, he was hit about the body, he was fending it off, Brett Lee and Sean Tate bowling rapid bouncers, and he just seemed totally uncertain. After the interval and after that little intervention from Michael Vaughan, he was a man transformed. He just took them on, didn't he? And there was a couple of top edges and balls flying for 6, which perhaps he didn't quite middle, but he smashed Vaughan, as he promised at my club, actually. He smashed Vaughan over long on for 6. He slog-swept him over mid-wicket for 6. He rifled the faster bowlers, Tate and Lee, through the covers with magnificent timing, hitting extra cover drives in your dreams almost. It was the most extraordinary innings. It was a series seizing innings, undoubtedly.
Gone for it. 6, going all the way. Got enough bat on it with the pace of Brett Lee. It was always going to carry the rope. That one, where's it gone? Straight in the air. It's another 6. Again he goes. Sean Tate, it was a good effort, but it got to him so quickly and he couldn't hang on to it. Another one for him to try and stop, and there's another 4. So Pietersen on a roll. Something's got to change here. This is like one-day mode for Pietersen.
Oh, what a cocker that shot was.
It's baseball.
It's 4, that's all that matters.
Actually very enjoyable seeing some young punk come in with the blue hair, had this massive ego, and I love that about cricket. I don't care what someone comes and does on the field. If they're up for the challenge, as a fast bowler, there's nothing more exciting than running in and bowling what you think is a perfect bumper, and a batsman going crack and hitting you 30 rows back. At the time, I hate it because you get hit for 6 or for 4, but you're actually in that contest. So there might be millions of people watching on TV around the world, which there was. There was thousands at the game watching. But for that split second, it's me versus Kevin Pietersen. And I remember I bowled him a bumper and he came up like that and just missed his glove. And I'm looking at him and he wasn't shying away. Like a lot of batsmen, they'll turn away. They won't look at you when you're in that zone. You're bowling quick. And he looked at me where he blew me a kiss. I'm like, this guy's different. This guy is absolutely does not care. He's up for the challenge. And I bumped him once and he got a top edge about 10 rows back. And then I bumped him again and he hit me about 40 rows back.
Oh, that is it for Collingwood.
Very good decision, wasn't it? Because it was just a little bit of glove. And Ricky Ponting taking an excellent catch diving forward. Paul Collingwood resisted bravely, really. Just the 10, but he hung around for a fair while. 186 for 6.
Crunching stroke. And again. Immense and thrilling power. Sean Tate has bowled Geraint Jones. Sheer pace doing the trick. That's why Ricky Ponting brought him on to bowl.
Well, the off-peg's gone about 8 yards back. This is a quick delivery that scuttled through Geraint Jones's defence. His checker, the stump. It's still going. Our Australia still in this match. England 205 ahead, 7 down. 55 overs remaining.
That's a beautiful stroke with which to make a maiden Test century. The last Test match of an Ashes series. Kevin Pietersen, who top scored for England in the first Test of the series at Lord's, gone off the boil a little bit in the meantime, but he is back on it again today, just when needed.
The score at tea was 221 for 7 and a lead for England of 227. There was still another 49 overs left in the game.
He has played some fantastic cricket today. What a bit of batting. He's going to end up the lead player in the series.
That's a superb shot. Hit that cleanly.
Well, he tried to bowl a slower leg spinner. It was wide, and he just picked it up for 150. What a terrific innings. England under severe pressure. And he's played the innings of his life.
I thought it was high wire batting, wasn't it? It was batting on that high wire over two tall buildings. You felt at any moment it could all go wrong, but it didn't. It was exhilarating. I think it's some of the most exhilarating cricket I've ever seen that afternoon because of what was at stake. The whole series was at stake. If he'd got out, if he top edge one had been caught, England could well have lost that game, but he did not. He took it on. He succeeded. He hit 15 fours and 7 sixes, and it was the most dramatic passage of cricket that I think most people have seen live, definitely, and all those people watching on Channel 4, listening to on Test Match Special, absolutely riveted by it. I mean, it had elements of Ben Stokes' innings at Headingley, didn't it? I mean, but I think the thing about Stokes' innings at Headingley was that it was kind of like England were never going to win. They were never going to win. They were never going to. Oh, they might win. Oh, and then they did win. This was England were ahead. They were kind of like balancing lots of plates at the same time. It's a question of whether they were all going to fall in a heap, and there was going to be this massive disappointment. The Headingley win was a bonus, whereas this was England had it. Were they going to blow it? And Pietersen took it on, and he made sure they didn't blow it.
And it was 24 days of effort, of blood, of sweat, of tears being expended in the attempt to reclaim the Ashes, which could all be washed away to nothing if they lost a few wickets towards the middle of the afternoon. They didn't, and Pietersen spurred them on with that brilliant innings, which even the Australians like Adam Gilchrist absolutely, totally admired.
Taking Binger on, hooking him, sort of half top edge sixes, and then one right out of the middle six, and then one drop short of the fine leg. And of course, dropped first ball or early in his innings. But it was, that final day did show, was probably truly indicative of how evenly matched the teams were and what a tightrope it was that both teams were walking on. But maybe, as I say, more of the showing you the negative mindset that I was in and the headspace. I always felt like we were forever playing catch up, and it was just out of our grasp to be able to get there, and it proved so by the end. So, but I must say, immediately I realised how fortunate we were, and I was to be a part of that, to sit there and up on the deck there, or the upper level there at the Oval, and look out at the reaction of the crowd, let alone the opposition players. You knew you'd been involved in something unique, truly remarkable, and something that was going to be spoken about for a long, long time to come. Here we are again, and it'll be spoken about and reflected upon for a long time to come. So that gave you a certain element of warmth that you'd been fortunate to be so involved in it.
So England were forging on, Kevin Pietersen to the fore. He had great support, it must be said as well, from Ashley Giles, who played magnificently.
What a 50. Ashley Giles is some cricketer.
Just tell us a little bit about that innings. You were batting with Pietersen. Were you able to communicate at all, or did you just sort of sit back and let him get on with it, really?
No, he was great. And actually, so everyone remembers again the Kev that went ballistic just before lunch and just after lunch.
Mm.
And the ball went everywhere, and you're just on the edge of your seat, and there was, it was just like a fireworks show. But when I went out to bat, Kev actually reined it back in a bit, and we just played normally for a while, and we got together and we talked about, well, I had to get in to start off with. But then we talked about getting through 6 balls, then 12 balls, then 18 balls. I think the furthest we got was 24, and then we'd work our way back. We had a bit of fun. I'm very grey now, but I was just developing my first grey hairs, and Kev loved taking the piss out of me. And so I turned around one day and said, well, it's the Clooney look, it's in fashion. So at the other end, during that innings, almost all the way through, he just kept going, keep going, George, keep going, George, keep going, George. I probably had the best seat in the house for one of the greatest Ashes innings of all time.
Real unsung hero of that Ashes campaign. And that was his moment, really, in that partnership with Kevin Pietersen. I also had the best seat in the house as well, as Pietersen was smashing this around. So England were, making progress. And there came a point where you thought, even this great Australian side, even if they have a real day out with the bat, they're not going to chase these down. And this is when Michael Vaughan knew it was job done.
But the way that he played a pull shot. I always remember a pull shot. It was a length ball, and he pulled it straight past mid-on off Brett Lee. It went like a rocket. It went like an absolute rocket. And I think it was around that time that he played that shot that I thought. And I remember sat next to Duncan Fletcher, the coach, and I remember shaking his hand at around, I think it was about 4 o'clock. 10 to 4 o'clock, I went, we've done it. And players were starting to hug each other. We knew we'd done it. The Aussies can't. I mean, they were a great side, but they're not going to chase 3 plenty in 25. They're not that good.
So Pietersen was finally out, and it happened to be that Richie Benaud, in his last commentary stint, was actually on commentary at the time. So here's a note from my diary. It says, Benaud is beginning his valedictory speech. There's been some wonderful music played today, he says, but one of my favourites is Sarah Brightman and Andrea Bocelli's Time to Say Goodbye. And it's that time now. So I'd just like to say thank you for having me, and it's been a privilege to be with you these last 42 years. And what's more important, it's been a great deal of fun. At that point, Pietersen is bowled by McGrath. But not for the batsman, he says. Then he goes on to describe the wicket, and he's gone. So even in his valedictory speech, he managed to kind of keep abreast of the game and build it into his commentary. It was a classic finish.
McGrath has picked him up. Late in the day, he's got a beauty through Kevin Pietersen. 308 for 8 now. Pietersen will receive a standing ovation. He gets one from Shane Warne at the moment.
Well, classic finish from Pietersen. 158. England bowled out for 335.
So the players returned to the field, and then there was the issue of light. After some debate, the umpires did this.
The news is that the two umpires, Rudy Cutzon and Billy Bowden, will walk out to the middle and with great ceremony will remove the bails from the stumps. What a performance from these two gentlemen.
All-time perfect. There it is.
England have regained the Ashes.
So the person lifting that replica urn was going to be Michael Vaughan, but it wasn't just any old urn, Yoz. It was your urn.
Yes, it was my urn. They encouraged me to lend it to them. Of course, I said yes, and I never got it back.
I wonder where it is now. Probably Michael Vaughan's house. He wouldn't give it away, would he?
No, why would he? Why should he?
You must ask him the next time you see him. What about the Australians? They were a champion side. They were taken down in one of the great all-time series. This is how Glenn McGrath and Jason Gillespie viewed it.
At the end, bad luck, light, and we walked off with England beating us 2-1. And to be honest, it was the first time our batsmen had ever been challenged, really challenged, I think. And yeah, as much as it kills me, I'd say England deserved to win that series.
We were spewing that we lost. We don't like losing, and but look, hats off to England. England were the better team over look, a 5-test series. The better team will always win, right? And ultimately, England were a better team. They were the team didn't change barely. It was very much the same team. Our team had a bit of turnover, changes. It was almost like the shoe was on the other foot, I thought their bowling attack was outstanding. They all brought something different, didn't they? I think Andrew Flintoff's bowling in that series was probably as good a test fast bowling that we encountered, and certainly in my test career. Ashley Giles, I thought, played an important role. He only had 9 wickets for that series, but he batted at 8. He, caught the gully, bowled important overs, took a couple of a few key wickets, kept the run rate manageable. Gave the quicks, rotated them. Vaughan rotated them very well. Simon Jones bowling with the old ball. Matt Hoggard predominantly with the new ball. And then you had Harmy, just being aggressive. And then Freddie doing what he did. So it was a really well-balanced attack. And probably the best attack, one of the best attacks I've seen in, a 5-man attack. One of the better ones going around that have played in Test cricket.
And as for England, well, huge triumph for them. Great individual triumphs, for the likes of Michael Vaughan, for Simon Jones, who didn't sadly take part in that final Test match, for Kevin Pietersen, his first Test series, and what a dramatic intervention for Andrew Strauss with those hundreds. I mean, they all played their part in the series, not least, of course, Freddie Flintoff, player of the series, runs, wickets, absolutely vital to England's Ashes campaign.
And what's amazing is that 2 days after that final Test match had ended, and England had had their victory parade, and I was recording an interview with Flintoff for the DVD that we made. He turned up at 10 o'clock in the morning, having barely been to bed, and was as coherent as you can imagine.
I mean, it was a slight anticlimax, I suppose, initially.
It was a bit. We wanted to win the Ashes out on the pitch, not in the dressing room. We came off and we thought, well, that must be to cancel the game now. But with the rules, you had to wait half an hour before you start losing overs, and it took a while for the word to filter through up to us in the dressing room. And once it did, it wasn't an anticlimax in here. All sorts of scenes going on, and it was great to be at the presentation, and then to do the lap of honour in front of a packed house was pretty special.
What was the feeling like on the field there when you were doing the lap of honour? And don't say unbelievable.
It was emotional, all different emotions. Pleased, obviously, but then you get a bit choked as well, and a few tears knocking about because it'd been a real epic. We'd tried our guts out for best part of 10 weeks, and then we've come and we can do the lap of honour. We've got the Ashes in our hands. We can see what it means to people, not just ourselves and the team, but everybody outside as well. Just was desperate for us to do something special, and it was nice to reward them in the way which we did.
I suppose it's been an on-running theme throughout, from Edgbaston onwards, how much clearly the nation wanted it. Has that? You've obviously got a sense of that.
Yeah, definitely. When you do a lap of honour here and everyone's on the seats shouting and screaming at you, you get on a bus through London and God knows how many people turn out for you. It's been amazing and something I've enjoyed, but in some ways can't believe, to be honest. It's almost like living a dream at the moment. We've won the Ashes. Everyone loves us for it. It's a case of when we're going to wake up.
And the last kind of 24 hours or so, which obviously you've hardly been to bed. I mean, I guess you're almost sort of floating through it, really, are you?
Yeah, I've seen the most of the last 24 hours. We celebrated well. We had a few beers in the dressing room. We had a drink with the Aussies. Got back to the hotel, and I don't think you want to go to sleep. I think you just want to keep enjoying it. It's a position which I hope we'll be in one day.
Funnily enough, when I was recording that interview with Freddie, at the end of it, Alex Stewart at the Oval came up to us, who of course played in, I think it was 7 Ashes series and lost all of them. And he went up to Freddie and he said, Freddie, that was just fantastic. Well done. Congratulations. Wonderful achievement. And then he looked at me and he said, you were good too. What's happening to your Analyst truck? So I said, well, it's all been stripped out. Everything's been stripped out and the branding's been taken off. And he said, well, they'll probably put Pickfords on the side and turn it into a removal van. And I said, yeah, that's me. That's going to be me humping furniture in the future. But I'm still here. I'm still doing analysis of cricket, bizarrely, 20 years on.
And what about the aftermath ring? There were those celebrations, weren't there, in Trafalgar Square, visit to number 10. The weather turned up as well, didn't it? It was an amazing day after the Ashes had finished, unlike the game itself, which probably helped England to some extent. But it was kind of back to reality as well. And they put so much into it over the weeks of the series, both sides. I mean, let's congratulate both sides because it was a fantastic series, and it takes two, and there certainly were two, and Australia played their part as well in an amazing series. Michael Vaughan, the winning captain, reflected on what it was like after all the action had stopped, after the hitting had stopped, after the catching had stopped, after the wicket taking had stopped, in a rather melancholic way, actually.
The actual fact, the celebrations were great. We had a good time, and we did it in true fashion. Whether you'd be allowed to do that these days, I'm not too sure. I hope they can. I hope they're still allowed to get out there and get pissed and have a bit of fun. That's part of playing a big series. That's what you build up towards at the end. But the team had worked so hard for that moment. But actually, the celebration happened. Then you get in your car to drive home, and I always remember getting back. I was with Nicola, and I think Tallulah was only around at that time. She was a little baby, and it's the massive come down. It's a huge come down. Like being on the M1, just pulling into the services, and yes, people recognise you, but it's like, all right, I've got to get back to normal life now.
Yeah, I can sort of understand how he felt, actually. I mean, we all felt that, I think, after that series. Of course, it was the last time Test cricket was on terrestrial TV, and there was a bit of a come down after that, even though obviously Sky had done a brilliant job. It did feel like the end of an era in a way. And so, there was a bit of an anticlimax, a feeling of loss actually afterwards, even though England had managed to regain the Ashes. So the team that played in that 4th and 5th tests never played together again. It's amazing, isn't it? It's the same as England winning the Rugby World Cup 2003, never played together again. 1966 World Cup and the 2019 World Cup, England winning the World Cup under Owen Morgan. None of those teams ever played together again. They scaled their Everest, and that effort and commitment required just left them spent afterwards.
But at least they did it. That's the thing. And it left us with, we're still talking about it 20 years later. We'll probably still be talking about it in 40 years' time, whatever, because it was just brilliant sport. It was sport at its best, played by two brilliant teams.
Yeah, it shows the beguiling nature of the Ashes that we're still talking about that series 20 years on. It definitely was the greatest Test series that's ever been. And there'll be another one in due course, won't there? There'll be another Ashes coming up in November. We can't wait for that. But in the meantime, we hope you've enjoyed this look back at that epic 5-Test series.
Thanks very much for listening. Goodbye for now.
Yes! 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 Yes!